Have you ever wondered why we say he runs and not he run? This is one of the many puzzles that language presents us with. Today, we're going to tackle a few of these puzzles, specifically focusing on the idea of grammatical agreement. This concept is the glue that holds our sentences together, ensuring our words flow in harmony. It's the reason why we say the dogs bark instead of the dogs barks. Grammatical agreement in English is primarily concerned with two areas: subject-verb agreement and pronoun-antecedent agreement. The former dictates how our subjects and verbs must correspond in number, while the latter ensures that our pronouns faithfully reflect the nouns they're replacing. Why are these rules so important, you ask? Well, they help us to communicate clearly and effectively, avoiding misunderstandings. They're the silent conductors of the symphony that is language. To unravel this mystery, let's dive deep into the world of grammar. Firstly, we need to understand what subject-verb agreement is. As the name suggests, subject-verb agreement refers to the grammatical rule that the verb in a sentence must agree in number with its subject. In simpler terms, if we have a singular subject, it requires a singular verb. Likewise, if the subject is plural, it needs a plural verb. Let's break this down with some examples. Consider the sentence, "The cat chases its tail." Here, cat is a singular subject, and therefore we use chases, which is a singular verb. If we change the subject to plural like cats, the verb also changes to chase, a plural verb. So the sentence becomes, "The cats chase their tails." Now you might ask, but how do I know whether a verb is singular or plural? Good question. In present tense, most verbs become singular by adding an s or es at the end. For instance, runs, eats, washes are all singular verbs. However, it's the opposite for the verb to be. Is singular, while are is plural. It can be a bit tricky, but with practice, it becomes second nature. But what happens when we add extra information to the sentence? Let's say, the cat, along with its kittens, chases its tail. Here, cat is still the subject, not kittens. Therefore, we still use the singular verb chases. This is because the verb agrees with the subject, not with a noun or pronoun in the phrase. It's tempting to match the verb to the nearest noun or pronoun, but resist this urge. So, what's the takeaway? Keep your eyes on the subject. Whether it's one cat, a herd of elephants, or a bouquet of flowers, make sure your verb matches your subject in number. It's all about harmony in the sentence. Remember, the verb agrees with the subject, not with a noun or pronoun in the phrase. In the next scene, we'll explore some exceptions to this rule. But for now, practice this fundamental principle of subject-verb agreement. But English is a tricky language, isn't it? It's full of exceptions. So, while the general rule of subject-verb agreement is that a singular subject takes a singular verb, and a plural subject takes a plural verb, there are instances where this rule doesn't quite apply as you'd expect. Let's explore a few of these exceptions. Firstly, when the subject of a sentence is a collective noun, such as team or group, the verb form can depend on whether the group is acting together or as individuals. For instance, the team is winning the match implies a collective action, hence a singular verb. But if we say the team are arguing among themselves, we're showing the team as individuals, hence the plural verb. Next, consider phrases like along with, as well as, besides, and so on. These phrases don't change the number of the subject. So even when a singular subject is followed by one of these phrases and a plural noun or pronoun, the verb remains singular. For example, the cat, along with the dogs, is playing in the yard. Here, cat is the subject, so is remains singular. Also, when the subject is an indefinite pronoun such as everyone, each, nobody, anyone, the verb should be singular, as these pronouns refer to one person at a time. For example, everyone is excited about the trip. Lastly, when a sentence starts with there is or there are, the verb agrees with the noun that follows. So you'd say, there is a book on the table, and there are books on the table. Indeed, English is a tricky language. But remember, the key to mastering these exceptions is practice. The more you read and write, the more familiar you'll become with these rules and their exceptions. Exceptions might seem confusing at first, but with practice, they become second nature. Now that we've mastered subject-verb agreement, let's move on to pronoun-antecedent agreement. First things first, what is a pronoun? Well, a pronoun is a word that takes the place of a noun. Examples include he, she, it, they, and we. Now, what's an antecedent? The antecedent is the noun that the pronoun is replacing. For example, in the sentence John lost his keys, John is the antecedent and his is the pronoun. The basic rule of pronoun-antecedent agreement is that a pronoun must agree with its antecedent in number, gender, and person. Let's break it down. First, agreement in number. If the antecedent is singular, like John, the pronoun must also be singular, like his. If the antecedent is plural, like students, the pronoun should also be plural, like their. Next, agreement in gender. This means that if the antecedent is female, the pronoun must also be female. In the sentence, Mary lost her book, Mary is the female antecedent and her is the corresponding female pronoun. Finally, agreement in person. This means that first-person antecedents like I or we should have first-person pronouns like my or our. Similarly, third-person antecedents like John or students should have third-person pronouns like his or their. Let's look at an example. Consider the sentence, the dog wagged its tail. Here, dog is a singular, neuter, third-person antecedent, and its is the corresponding singular, neuter, third-person pronoun. Therefore, they agree in number, gender, and person. But what about this sentence? The dogs wagged their tails. In this case, dogs is a plural, neuter, third-person antecedent, and there is the corresponding plural, neuter, third-person pronoun. Again, they agree in number, gender, and person. Just like with subject-verb agreement, the pronoun must always agree with its antecedent. But wait, there are exceptions here too. Just when you think you've got the hang of pronoun-antecedent agreement, the English language throws a curveball. One of these curveballs comes in the form of indefinite pronouns. These are words like anyone, everyone, someone, and the like. Even though they seem to be referring to more than one person, they are actually singular. So, if we're using an indefinite pronoun as an antecedent, we need to use a singular pronoun to agree with it. For example, everyone should bring their umbrella is incorrect. It should be, everyone should bring his or her umbrella. Now let's talk about collective nouns. These are words that represent a group or collection of people or things like team, family, or committee. They're a bit tricky because they are singular, but they refer to more than one person. So should we use a singular or plural pronoun? Well, it depends on whether we're thinking of the group as a single unit or as individual members. If it's the former, we use a singular pronoun. For instance, the team takes its practice seriously. But if we're thinking about the individuals within the group, we use a plural pronoun. For example, the team have taken their positions. Another tricky case involves sentences where the antecedent is joined by or nor. In such cases, the pronoun should agree with the antecedent closest to it. For instance, neither the apples nor the orange has lost its freshness. Here, its refers to orange, which is closer to the pronoun. And then there's the case of each and every. These words are always singular, so they require singular pronouns. So, each of the boys has their own bike is incorrect. It should be each of the boys has his own bike. These exceptions might seem tricky, but remember, consistency is key. So, we've taken a whirlwind tour of grammatical agreement. We've delved into the intricate dance of subject-verb agreement, where we learned that a singular subject pairs with a singular verb, and a plural subject dances with a plural verb. We explored the exceptions too, those odd cases that defy the rules, but make the English language the rich tapestry that it is. Then we navigated the waters of pronoun-antecedent agreement. We discovered that a pronoun must agree in number and gender with its antecedent. We also uncovered some exceptions, reminding us that English is a language full of surprises. Remember, these rules are not just about being correct. They're about clarity, precision, and effective communication. They're the building blocks to expressing ourselves clearly and confidently. With these rules in your toolkit, you're well on your way to mastering English grammar.